how does China's increasing defense budget reflect its stance on geopolitical tensions with the United States?
Well, I don't know where you get the sense that it's increasing. It's gone up by the exact same amount for the last 3 years. You can say it's increasing because it's a percentage of GDP of the budget, but is in essence just staying stable in terms of overall percentage. In terms of what China is hoping to do, they want to make it clear that they're not going to be, subject to another century of humiliation. This is very much uppermost in the Chinese mind. They do not want to be dominated by a colonial power that is reasserting itself as an empire by saying it's going to take lands from South America, Europe, even Canada, Gaza included. These are the marks of, an expansionist empire that has no regard for the rules of law or international system. So they're just making sure that it's clear that they're not going to be a patsy and they're not going to roll over.
Professor Jacquet, what role does the Indo-Pacific region play in the current China-US geopolitical tensions, especially the economic and trade tensions?
Well, it's a big question. We'll see, first of all, what will be the impact of this tit-for-tat game and how China and the US will adapt, how they'll be affected and which sectors they'll try to strengthen. Now, more generally, we know that for Donald Trump, but as well more generally for the US, let's say, system, it's important to uphold the position of economic leadership of primacy in the system. And President Trump made it clear he thought that too much power was given to China. So he would like to, let's say, regain this US trade primacy in the world. And it could be a way maybe to contain Chinese expansion in the Asia-Pacific, not just, let's say, the more traditional political or security expansion of China, but as well the economic and trade expansion in the region.
Professor Tangen, in your own opinion, how might China's efforts to diversify its export markets mitigate the effects of US tariffs?
Well, that's been coming on for a long time. The largest trade partner is ASEAN, and you'll see that there's a correlation between increased trade with China and ASEAN and increased ASEAN trade with the rest of the world, especially Europe and America. I reject my colleagues' kind of inference that this is somehow a tit for tat. The aggressor here is the United States, and that's quite clear. China has responded, but not escalated. So this idea that somehow China is involved is nonsense. The fact is that the most difficult parts of this is going to be faced by the United States, by the consumers there. I'll give you a perfect example. Steel and aluminum. The last aluminum factory in America was built 40 years ago. U.S. is the largest importer of steel and aluminum. It is already, its current factories, its existing capacity is running at over 90% for both. So it cannot satisfy its own demand. It's just going to increase prices across the board, but it's not going to stop the U.S. from importing. They just import less because there'll be less demand. So this is, Donald Trump has not thought through any of his policies. He's a veritable economic retard, and he's being advised by people who have extreme agendas and no credibility.
Professor Jacquet, what are the key challenges facing negotiations aimed at resolving the trade war between China and the United States now?
Well, in terms of challenges as well, these negotiations can be impacted by other issues as well. Should it be regional issues in the Asia-Pacific or more generally as well? How, let's say, global power is now divided anew between China, Russia, and the US in what looks like a new Yalta. I guess for the US, once again, it's about trying to impose this US primacy and to control again China's economy as it used to be, for example, controlling, rather saying being the investor and being influential on this market as it used to be in the previous decades, or for example, under President Clinton. Once again, I think we have to look at Donald Trump's rhetoric. He's very provocative, and it's often for him a way to start negotiations. But usually, if he's confronted to strong or bold, let's say, partners or counterparts, usually he may double down and he may propose something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Professor Tangen, in what ways could the trade war impact China's Made in China 2025 initiative, and how might this affect the global industrial competition?
Well, the global industrial competition has been won by China. I mean, it's 35% of the world's manufacturing. It's 30% of the world's growth. This is not a contest between the U.S. and China on that level. What it is the United States is, as a colleague has said, is trying to dominate not only the world, but also what it sees as a peer competitor, and that is China. China will continue to trade. They will continue to have breakthroughs, as we have seen, both in culture with their blockbuster movies and their video games, but also in technology, whether it's new electric vehicles or DeepSeek. China has the upper hand in part because it has the brain power, the manpower. It has 7 times the number of engineers in critical areas and the ability to take ideas and put them into the market. So